Global crude oil prices continue to rise. Retail stations operated by NNPCL on Monday adjusted the pump price of PMS and as petrol to 945 naira per litre in Abuja and 915 naira per litre in Lagos. The latest increase marks a 64% jump from the 860 naira per litre that NNPC briefly offered in March. It was gathered that the price changes have been implemented at several NNPC retail stations and have triggered an industry-wide ripple effect, which has also been extended to private retailers. Some independent marketers are said to have said that the pump prices could exceed 1,000 naira per litre in the coming weeks unless immediate intervention occurs. What then could be the primary factors driving the recent increase in ex-depot price of PMS? These are some of the questions our guests will be providing answers to tonight on Nigeria Today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Eucharia Clinton. With me in the studio to speak on this issue is Olabode Shomi. He's an energy expert. It's a pleasure to have you on Nigeria Today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Olabode, I would have smiled back the way you smiled, but really, it's not. I'm not smiling because the issue of the increase is kind of something that somebody will just ask. Why are we here again?
Okay. There are multiple factors, one of which is the fact that crude oil prices, which is the primary determinant of price, has increased. But before we do an alas, it is important we check what is comparable competitively. So if we check our neighboring countries, whether it is Ghana, Togo, Mali, and all that, there is nobody that is selling petrol at anything less than 1,500 naira equivalent. So, in retrospect, by comparison, we are relatively cheap. You also want to compare with OPEC nations. We are still cheap. However, I understand the issue. The issue, I mean, as a Nigerian myself, is the fact that the naira seems to have fallen short relative to the dollar. Some sort of dollar to naira parity. That is at the root of the problem, really. So the fact that there is this dollar issue in terms of rate, and by comparison, there is the other side that anytime there's an increase in the US dollar price for anything that is related to us, there's a quantum leap in the naira equivalent. Those really are the issues. So yes, there are one or two factors that are doing it, but we just have to ensure a balance between we're making progress versus what the situation is. When there's increase of this sort, we must note that somebody has to take that cost. So it's either government takes it in terms of subsidy, or the people take it in terms of increasing price. But that cost doesn't disappear. So if something used to cost $72 or $70, now it's $79. That $9, somebody's going to take that cost. It's not going to disappear.
But a lot of the over 60% increase in the price, is it will I say justifiable right now? Because we're at a point where we're beginning to heave a sigh of relief that it's coming down, and we're expecting that it comes down to 600 naira. We say at this rate, okay, it's coming down now. Okay, by 600, very soon we'll hit 600 naira. Only for us to see, all of a sudden 900 and something naira. Say, are we back to where we used to be?
We can even wish that it comes to 50 naira. There's nothing wrong. But is it real? You see, so when we wish things, when we hope things, we have to balance it with some amount of realism. Because somebody has to pay for the crude. Yes, government has done crude for Naira. With Dangote. But we must not forget that that crude for Naira that was done with Dangote, that amount of money used to be in dollars. there is a reduction in the amount of dollars that come into the federal government. It's not like it just disappears. So it's the same thing. If we want this price to go to 50 naira, it's possible.
So how can we make it possible?
Subsidy is one option. But if we go to subsidy, we are going back to the devils that brought us to the situation where we are. So there must be a balance. But one of that balance is reality. So when we are making these complaints, when we are having these concerns, it is because we're not trying to face reality. So it's like a child who wants to grow up but doesn't want to have growth pains. Or like a mother who a woman who wants to give birth but doesn't want to have childbirth pains. It's possible if he steals the child. But in terms of the normal process, in terms of the normal process, some things are just there. And like I said, it's always good we also look at people who have gone through this kind of circumstances and reforms. China went through it in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. They lasted a long time, even to early 90s, 30, 40 years. People died in China. Britain went through it in the 70s, early 80s. People lost jobs. People felt their life were not. Brazil went through it in the 80s. In fact, it was said in Brazil at a time that prices used to change 4 times a day. We're talking galloping inflation. Prices of food items, the price you buy it in the morning is different from the one you buy it at noon. It's different from the one you buy it at 6 p.m. It's different from the one you buy it at 9 p.m. Fortunately, we thank God we are not yet in that situation. So when we are trying to go through this kind of reforms, we should expect what it will look like. So if a woman wants to give birth, there's first trimester, second trimester, even your stomach will come out, your whole body will be disfigured. But if you want to be doing CC throughout, you get as it be. So it's just the reality of how these things are.
So a lot of persons will say, okay, with Dangote refinery in place, what role does it play in this pricing ecosystem? I mean, how
I don't know why
this?
People expected Dangote to transform prices, because let's look at it. How do we arrive at the cost of a finished product? You buy the raw material, which in this case is crude. That's a fixed price. Nothing anybody can do about it. You transport it to the refinery. That's a fixed price. Nothing anybody can do. The refinery processes it. Is a fixed price, processing across board, and then it transports it. So what Dangote does is, Dangote is a refinery. What it does is that it reduces the price of transportation to the refinery, because the refinery is here, and then it processes it. It is not cheaper in processing. It's the same cost that everybody else processes. So the question will be, what percentage of the total cost is that transportation cost that Dangote is saving? Less than 10%. So when people say Dangote is supposed to do this, I keep asking them, where did they come up with that idea? So the reality is that Dangote will do his bit. In some things, it's not expected to be more expensive than the one that is being exported, that is being imported. Based on that, it will do what? I mean, it will provide competitive succor. Because as long as he's there, those who are bringing import and whatever it is they are bringing have to be on their toes. There's no excess money to be made. As long as those people are also bringing in, Dangote too has to be on his toes. There's no excess money to be made. So it's in the long-term interest of Nigerians that there's a competitive environment, a push and pull, so that the beneficiaries are Nigerians. And that's why I said, if you compare what we are paying with what the rest of West Africa is paying, you will know that we are actually benefiting from competition.
I know you've said that earlier, but Olabode, now tell us, is it, are we expecting more increase in the near future? Because someone said, at this rate, we see it heading to, just so like you said, some persons are equivalent 1,500.
Yes.
We are saying
some are 2,000.
No, don't go there. Don't go
No,
there.
I'm saying 1,000 is actually on the low side. So what I'm trying to say is that, look, price of a commodity is price of a commodity. You get. There are factors that add up to the price. As long as those factors remain stable, the prices will remain stable. If the factors reduce, you should expect the price to reduce. If the factors increase, that is life. You see, I think as Nigerians, we should not create an environment where we expect ourselves to not live in reality. That would be self-deception. We need to understand that this is the reality, brace ourselves up for it, and deal with it. We cannot hide ourselves in this. And okay, yes, it's easy for me to say, no, we don't expect any price again. Yes, I've escaped. But the fact of the matter is that these are the factors that determine price. If those factors are altered, the price will be altered, either negatively, either upwardly or downwardly, depending on how those prices are altered.
But is there a way that we also can, alter the factors positively?
Oh, yes. There are ways.
Please, that is the way we want to hear.
There are ways we can alter prices positively. We can volunteer services for the companies that are providing. I mean, for example, it takes money to transport fuel to the filling station. People can volunteer to take it to the filling station. Look, services are services. Somebody has to bear the cost. If the price of, okay, why are foodstuffs increasing in price? One of which is that there aren't enough people in the farms as there used to be. Another one is storage as a factor. Another one is increased cost of transportation.
Which is as a result of the fuel increase?
Yes. So if you now ask the farmer, what can I do to make sure your cost of yams reduce? You have to affect one of those factors. If you don't affect those factors, you can like him, you can love him, you can kiss him, you can worship him. The factors remain the factors. So when you ask, what can you do? It's things outside our circle. Unfortunately, as human beings, it's not everything that we can influence directly. It's not. And we need to live a life in that reality.
Okay, I will take a short break now. The conversation will continue after the break. Don't go away.
Of the ruling is also dependent on another aspect or another arm of government.
Nowhere in the world will allow under digital economy for banks not to be dispensing domestic currency in that economy.
What will make this one different? We want to know what they do as occupation. All of these are attributes that are questions have been designed to investigate.
In a few days to come, you see that we are all around their own crannies and everywhere in Nigeria, telling people to cooperate.
Welcome to Nigeria Today.
Welcome back. This is Nigeria Today. We're looking at update on PMS price increase, price adjustment, really. And of course, I have Labode showing me here in the studio for this conversation. Now, Labode, as much as you say, okay, there's nothing much we can do just to preserve the reality. Well, again, definitely it's affecting a lot of sectors. This is affecting a lot of things. Now, you said we should raise up to reality. How do you think you can do that, really? Looking at the situation on ground.
Well, handling economic issues is for economic experts, of which I'm not one. But if we are going to talk about the process of refining, fractional distillation, the issues in the industry, I may have greater things to contribute. But The oil industry is not the only industry. There are others that have significant impact to be made. But increase in fuel price, decrease in fuel price is a fact of life. Just like anything else. Just like sometimes you have surplus, sometimes you are broke. It's a fact of life. So, I mean, I don't know how else to say it.
Now, are there some measures that the government can put in place to, to cushion the, will I say, the economic effect it will have on, low-income households and transport-dependent sectors?
Again, a question for economists. What they can do, they can do. I mean, it's the same thing that people have been talking about. Some kind of subsidizing for transportation, the CNG initiative that they have. So maybe they need to speed it up. Maybe they need to structure it more. Maybe they need to invite people that actually make CNG cars to come and set up factories in Nigeria rather than, but whatever it is government is going to do, because of the nature of the system of governance and government, there are things that you have to look at on the long run. They are not short-term things. They are not things that is going to happen next tomorrow. So that by the time all those things start to come in play, they will affect on the long term. They're not going to determine really much in the next 1 year.
Now let's look at the alternative energy. You just mentioned CNG. Apart from CNG, are there other alternative energy that we can adopt to reduce the dependence on fuel? Because it just seems to be anytime fuel price or petrol price increases, everybody starts crying. So are there other alternatives, to petrol really that we can adopt?
Well, first of all, they are all fuel. But alternatives to petrol, I'm not sure there are much. You can use diesel. You can use kerosene. You can use gas. But I'm sure you don't want to drive a car that uses kerosene. Just like I'm sure you'll be careful about driving a car that uses diesel either. So CNG offers a good option. And it's not something that is for the short term or the immediate. It's something that will come on the long term.
And you think if we start the plants now, definitely.
But the plants are on the way.
Yeah, the plants are on the way.
There's infrastructure and supply chain that they need to build. Because right now, if you are traveling from here to Portisco, there's no local government you enter that you don't see a fuel station and a mechanic and all those things. But you can say the same for a CNG supply. So that's infrastructure, that's supply chain. That needs to also be built for it to be effective. Then the cars need to come in. Then the mechanics that will be capable with those cars need to also be with them. That's how all those things are. They take time. They do take time.
Now, our CNG, the CNG that I just started, how impactful do you think it has been? Because quite a lot of cars have converted to CNG. But well, you still see even the ones that are using CNG.
For those who have converted,
yes,
they are very happy. Because people are known to use 4,500 naira worth of gas to travel from Lagos to...
Have you converted?
No, I've not.
Okay.
But people have been known to use, about 5,000 naira to travel by gas from Lagos to Abuja. So, some people are happy. The fact remains that even some persons that are using the CNG, when the price of fuel increases, you see them also shouting and crying as though they are also using, petrol. Now, I don't know really the CNG stuff. Quite a lot of persons are using it, but they are still charging. In terms of transportation,
because when you see a car that is CNG, from the smell of the fume that comes out of the exhausts, you just know that this is not the normal fare. I don't know for other people if they notice, but I notice. And they still charge the same, the same price they charge. Other people using petrol charge. So is there a way, or is there a measure, in your own opinion, that can be put in place to ensure that people with CNG can reduce their costs?
That's an integrity issue. It's as simple as that. It's an integrity issue. Because the worst that can happen, or let me not say the worst, the best that can happen is that they will criminalize it. But that's extreme. And that's anti-competition, anti-competitive. Because people should be allowed to choose whatever price they want to do for their service. Competition will allow everything to balance. So it just speaks to the fact that some of our problems are also us. Because the whole idea about some people, especially commercial vehicles, getting the CNG is so that it could serve as palliatives. Those were some of the things the government wanted to do to support people on the short term. But the people who are supposed to be the sharp end of the stick, where the rubber touches the road, they are the ones, for personal gains, putting a whole mass of people in problems. So there's not much government can do. So we as a people also need to understand that we are part of our own problems.
Okay, still talking about the increase in fuel price. Are there regulatory mechanism that should be put in place to prevent excessive markups? Because as much as you see some filling stations, even while we are saying 940 in some NNPC stations, some will be shooting it up to above 1,000.
So the whole idea is that if they do that, because some people are selling at below that, you will choose who to buy with. It's like you go to the market. You are not going to see tomatoes and onions, even if they are in the same area, at the same price. It's all dependent on what each person wants to sell. So, and that is competition. That's the free market. That's the competitive environment. And that is what is being desired. So they don't really want to limit, within reason, people from putting whatever price they want to put. But even though they are not limiting them, it is expected that that push and pull from competition will make the industry and the markets to be a much better one.
Thank you very much, Olabode Sowunmi. He's an energy expert. Thank you for coming on the program and sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
And thank you for being part of the program. Don't forget, Nigeria Today airs every weekday at 7:30 p.m. on NTA News 24. You can also watch this episode and others on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. I'm Ikaria Clinton. Goodbye.